My dad was the first to do this. My dad was the first black man to do that. He was the first black man to do that. He opened so many doors, only because of the times, because there just weren't a lot of black men around at the time. He was out there doing what all Canadian kids did back then in the wintertime, found a winter sport that he totally loved. And he used to say all the time, I could eat the puck for breakfast, dinner, and supper. That's how much I love the game. And so I would say it was his first love. And then, of course, came my mother. This is my father at the age of about 17. And this is a journalist who's writing about him playing. And he says, you couldn't single out the individual stars of the Toronto team without placing dusky Herb Carnegie head and shoulders above the crowd. He was superb. He poke check, back check, forecheck, stole the puck from the Barrie attackers from every possible angle and in every section of the rink, and was a constant offensive threat that nearly drove the Colts frantic. He scored 2 goals and assisted in 4 others. A great performance by a great little player. His teammates were wonderful and treated him with the utmost respect, obviously understood what a talent he was. But it was the off-ice things that happened that created a problem. And of course you get what we're still getting, name calling and gestures and all of that kind of thing. There's my mother in the stands in I think she was in Montreal. Somebody shouts out, black bastard, and stuff like that. So, she's sitting in the audience and she's hearing these things being said about the man she loves. There were so many subtle ways that he was hurt. Put the red light on, Herbie. That's the way to answer these remarks. So you ask yourself, why didn't he speak up? He had a family to feed. There were 3 of us in a house at the time. And black men, there were rules and regulations. They might not have been spoken out loud, but internalized that you don't get to say anything.
There's so many memories that I have of my grandfather. The fondest one that I have is the only time that I saw my grandfather on the ice with me. Was the first time that he brought skates over. My mom said, my son's not playing hockey. I witnessed mom going through hardships. Dad's here, left with the kids. I'm not doing that to my daughter-in-law. And then my grandfather showed up the next day with a pair of skates. He was legally blind at that time. And I remember pushing the pylon on the ice while my grandfather was holding the boards, just so he could have that one moment with his grandson. And I'll never forget that.
Initially, when they played, they worked in the mines, and the mines had teams connected to them. So they didn't actually get paid for playing hockey. They get paid to work in the mines, and hockey was the sidebar until they got really good at hockey and they started being paid for hockey. So he played the 17 years. He ended his career in Owen Sound on a high. I think they won the seniors championship that year, and came back home. And he came home with mixed feelings. The way he describes it, he said, I absolutely love that sport. I put everything into it. I played every game like there was going to be a scout who would bring me up. And it just didn't happen. But the experience of hockey, the things that it taught him, the leadership, the confidence, the camaraderie, he came away with all of that. By chance, there was a team of kids who were playing in a tournament. I believe the coach got quite ill. and they asked my father if he would take it over. And then they called him. He said yes, and then they called him and he said, well, the team doesn't even have a name. So what are you going to call your team? And he said he thought for 10 seconds and it came out, Future Aces. That feeling of these young, aspiring people that would keep working in the future to be the best of who they could be. So that's how Future Aces got coined. And so the following year, in 1955, he established the first registered hockey school in Canada, and he called it Future Aces. This was his way. He thought that going to young kids, if we get them young and teach them the values of life and how life can be a wonderful place for everybody, then that was his way of dealing with racism and exclusion. But I do get letters or notes from some of the boys that actually played back in 1955 in this hockey team. I'm remembering what my father brought to their life. So it's kind of amazing to be thinking that he actually has influenced generations of lives.
My grandfather was a leader, and in times like this, we need leadership. So it's very important for me that I make the changes in this world that I want to see, and that I contribute in any way possible for positive, meaningful change. And my grandfather was my world, so I'm trying to, big shoes to fill, but trying my hardest to step into that spotlight and do the best that I can. Positive attitude, cooperate with everybody, set a good example, get your education, and then sportsmanship and service. How can I help wherever, whenever, I'm one phone call away, and just that whole character that he tried to instill in this world, through the foundation, through just him being a positive, no matter what he went through. He used to always tell us, in every negative, there's a positive, you just can't give up to find it.